Hey, welcome back to Everyday Economics, the podcast that helps you learn about the economic world happening around you every day. I'm your host, Chris Krug, CEO of the 501c3 nonprofit Franklin News Foundation. Everyday Economics is a production of America's Talking Network. You can listen to all of our terrific podcasts at americastalking.com. To support podcasts such as Everyday Economics, please make a tax-deductible charitable contribution by clicking the link in the show description. We're recording this episode on Friday, September 6th, and joining me as always, Mr. Wonderful, Part 2. Dr. Orphe Divounguy. He's a PhD economist, all-around good guy.
I don't know if you want to call me Mr. Wonderful, man.
I like Mr. Wonderful.
I do like it. I do like it. I do. He's pretty.
I think Kevin O'Leary is just he's just not afraid to say what's on his mind.
Well, I mean, he's just a no-nonsense kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he just likes his numbers, right?
Like he does like his numbers. The fundamentals.
I like it. I like people who are straight to the point and just can back up what they're saying, right? Like he's not wishy-washy about it.
The rare person who can do that and can stay course.
By the way, Mr. Wonderful, if you're listening, we could use some funds here on the Everyday Economics podcast. You know, if you want to sponsor our thing here, it would be nice. Very nice of you.
We welcome that conversation. Hey, you and I think it's like sort of part of what, like our back and forth. We trade a lot of information with each other. And you'd sent me this take from David Kelly, who's somebody I know that you really respect. He's the global chief strategist at JP Morgan. And this is kind of like right up your alley, right? This, so it's like, this is in line with something that I can hear you saying. But I wanted to read this quote. And this is from a post that David Kelly made on LinkedIn. So forgive me, those of you who are watching this on YouTube.
He's got this very successful, very, very successful newsletter.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn. He posts every Monday, and it's usually something that's on my mind already.
Yeah.
And so I love reading his stuff.
It's terrific when you have somebody confirming some of your thinking, yes. Right? And somebody who you respect. So let me read what he wrote. And this is a quote from David Kelly. He said, "Over the years, I've been asked many times by financial advisors about these and other apocalyptic scenarios. To be clear, these questions do not spring from the genuine concerns of financial advisors or even the diligent research of their clients. Rather, they arise because investors are on the receiving end of messages from prophets of doom delivered online via radio shows or in person. These soothsayers make a living from hoarsely barking out assertions of disaster without any proof or any academically sound investigation. The tell, of course, comes in the pitch at the end. Because of the imminent disaster, you should sell all of your assets and buy gold or Bitcoin or canned goods and ammunition. And luckily, they just happen to have gold and Bitcoin and a moderate supply of canned goods and ammunition in their shed out back." It is fascinating what turns the wheels in economic news media. And you and I talk about this on the show and probably more so offline. I mean, it was some of the things that I don't know that either are unsettling when you read the headline, but then are sort of, not to say comical, but not terribly credible once you actually listen to what the heart or the meat of the program might be. And he kind of used your line, the prophets of doom. I thought that was a Dr. O original.
I think everybody loves that, right? I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. I don't know. But it's okay. It's totally okay because he used it well. He used it well.
That's right.
He basically says like the demographic doom is not coming. The debt, the size of the debt, right? The debt threat, which, by the way, he kind of downplays it a little bit. I wouldn't downplay it. It is an issue.
Oh, and it's real.
It's a real issue.
It's real.
But it's nowhere near going to cause a collapse of the U.S. economy. And before we do anything about our entitlements, and then the role of the dollar, you hear about that all the time. You're like, oh, look, people still have, first of all, people still have appetite for U.S. Treasuries and U.S. debt,
Right.
and ultimately, of all the economies in the world, the U.S. is the one that emerged as doing better.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the dollar continues to remain, the currency of choice for most people around the world. And so anyway, when it comes to the position of the dollar and it comes to the debt threat, the debt crisis that's coming, I don't see anything that will undo the U.S. economy's position in the world. And I think he makes it pretty clear in that article.
One thing that sort of dawned on me, in the last couple of days, and I think a lot of people consume the news by, headline ingestion, and they don't bother to read the stories.
Right.
I mean, because they don't have time, or they are not making the time, or there's a terrific video of a cat, falling off of a ladder and landing perfectly on its feet that they want to watch, or whatever. I haven't heard a whole lot about the BRICS countries lately and the quote unquote BRICS economy. Why is that?
I mean, because they're relatively small, and there's no real economy to challenge the U.S. Position. And some of them, and even the ones that are big, they're just weaker. They're not. Look at, I mean, we're at full employment, man, and we're constrained by population growth.
Yeah.
Okay, we're productivity is on the rise. Employment growth is constrained by population growth in the U.S. It's not because we're not creating jobs, because we don't. No, actually, we have to slow down our economy. All the other central banks have been cutting already, started their cutting cycles. We haven't, because we have to slow down. We literally have to slow down our economy. I can't believe I'm saying that, but we have to. We have to put the brakes on it, right? So, I mean, our position is, we're in a pretty good place. I do lament somewhat the fact that we don't invest in our infrastructure, and you have economies that are investing in our future. I think that's something that we need to talk about. We need to invest in our future, and that means investments in infrastructure, changing the way our dollars flow to the classroom, right? Changing the way we fund our education system. I think that's what's missing, essentially, because
that's a whole separate conversation.
Because the question really is, like, how long can we stay in that position for, right?
I don't think that we're having a dollars to the schools problem. I think we have a dollars from the school to the classroom.
Yeah,
and that I mean, those are two very separate problems.
Absolutely, I think I would have to agree with you there.
One thing I want to ask you, I mean, it's like, we're talking about employment and being at full employment right now, and that's kind of an interesting concept. And let's just consider that, that to be true, right? I mean, that you're on with that. So, in the last 3 years, because of what's gone on in immigration in this country, right? And obviously you and I we're both immigrants, right? My family my families just happened to get here 150 and almost 200 years ago, and yours got here, what, 15 years ago?
It's crazy to say this, but yeah, like almost 25 years ago.
25 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it has been reported. I mean, and the number has been, I mean, sort of like literally unmapped. And I fully blame the federal government for that. And we have no idea how many new people have come into the country in the last 3 years illegally. When they start to make their way into the job force, when they step outside of the stimulus that we've created for them and try to enter into this economy, let's just say that's within the next year or 2 years, whenever that stimulus runs out, what is the economy going to look like? What's the job market going to look like?
It's going to be a little bit looser, right? But the thing though is that that we tend to forget about when we think of the labor market is that it's not just the people, it's also the quality of the people. And there's a ton of research that basically tells us that when immigrants come in, because of the quality of because of their talents, they actually help to boost productivity.
Yeah.
And create jobs for natives.
Right. But those measurements can only be done around legal immigration, right?
Sure. I mean, I'm not even sure we control for who's legal and who's not legal. We kind of assume, right, that that basically what we're seeing is legal, but when people are here, we don't know whether they're legal or not, right?
Right.
And so essentially, this is based on the immigrant population as a whole that we can observe. And then on top of that, we learned this recent research. I think I might have shared something with you on this last week.
Maybe.
That shows that basically when a immigrant entrepreneur or founder leaves or dies, you get a bigger decline in productivity in that workforce that was surrounded around him than you would when a native founder or entrepreneur passes.
It's interesting.
Which is right. So there was an externality. There's something special about immigrant entrepreneurs that they bring to the table that actually helps to boost the quality of the people around them, which I think is phenomenal. It's fascinating, and so immigration per se is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It boosts the size of our economy, both in terms of the numbers of people, but also the quality and productivity gains that we're getting from what they bring to the table. I think that's amazing. And especially in an economy that is aging, right? We have an economy that is aging.
We do.
And so we're going to need a lot more of those young, talented people from abroad that are going to come and fill those gaps that are missing to boost the economy. By the way, another thing is when we spend so much on our older folks, right? Because we have a social security problem in this country. I think that's something no one will debate at this point. We're going to need young people to work.
Yeah.
Pay for that stuff.
That's true.
I think a lot of people forget that.
The fraud system needs to be bailed out.
Yeah.
Who's
going to bail us out?
Well, I mean, it's going to have to be the next generation. And
exactly.
That's the fundamental problem. So
exactly. And the next generation is going to be smaller.
I want to talk about Social Security on an upcoming episode because I think that it's an important subject, and in every administration it gets punted. It just keeps getting punted.
You know why, right? My theory on look, who's voting, man? Voters are older.
Right. But the fundamental issues around Social Security, they have to be addressed. We've got to call it good. We have to call it good right here. We're running up against 14 minutes. Good discussion, good conversation as always, and thank you.
Thanks for having me, my friend.
Well, for Dr. Orphe Divounguy, I was going to say, what choice do I have? I mean, you're. But thanks again, Dr. O. For Orphe Divounguy, this has been Chris Krug. Subscribe to Everyday Economics and dozens of other really terrific podcasts at americastalking.com.